So I, female 23, am a full-time college student. Right now I'm living with my sister Claire and her husband Thomas while I get through my current semester. I don't work, so I don't have everything I need for my daily skin and hair routine, so I borrow stuff from Claire. Claire didn't have an issue initially, but then started complaining about me randomly walking into her room, but I went in there looking for the stuff I asked for. She gave me a hard time just because I walked in on Thomas half naked to get the eyeshadow I borrowed from her, and then another time when I walked in late at night. She told me I needed to get her permission to enter the room before I took anything, but I figured this would make things complicated. It's enough that I have to ask to borrow an item. So at around 10 p.m. last night, I went upstairs and into her bedroom to grab the hairdryer. I walked in, and whoops, I saw them in an intimate position together in bed. I had no idea they were doing it, especially since Claire told me Thomas has been feeling sick for the past 2 days. Then she lashed out at me, yelling that I get out. I quickly grabbed the hairdryer then, walked out, and shut the door. Minutes later, she came downstairs in her robe and went off on me, saying she was done with me, repeatedly disrespecting and violating her and her husband's privacy. I told her it was cool, no big deal, and I needed the dryer, but didn't have time to ask for permission. She got even louder, saying I had no business barging into her marital space and embarrassing her and her husband like this. I told her I was sorry, but she overreacted to this whole thing. This made her angrier. She went on about how I'm living here rent-free and yet not being respectful. Finally, I stopped arguing and went to my room. This morning, Thomas left the house early, and Claire ignored me during breakfast as she was still upset, saying I don't get to say whether she overreacted or not, and that my behavior was inappropriate. She even wants me to apologize to her husband for making last night awkward, but I don't think so. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot, and a 23-year-old toddler. I'm honestly baffled that you're even asking. She specifically requested that you not go into her room without asking, and you ignored that because you didn't feel like asking, and then you validated her concerns by walking in on them. How do you not see that you're in the wrong? Can't you knock? You're lucky enough to be housed by your sister and her partner rent-free and get to use her things for free. You are an entitled, spoiled brat. You're a guest, and you need to live by the owner's rules. They should kick you out. At 10 p.m., she shouldn't be knocking. I can't imagine a life or death hairdryer situation. You are the idiot for everything, but especially for walking in on them being intimate and still grabbing the hairdryer before you left. That's the point of no return when not thinking about anyone but yourself. So glad somebody called this out. She walked in on them and kept going. I wouldn't dream of walking into my child's room without getting permission, let alone a couple's room. So you're living with them for free, sponging your sister's skincare and walking in unannounced. You are the idiot trifecta, plus thinking she overreacted. I'd be looking for another apartment because time is up on this one. This is so embarrassing to read. You're 23 years old, leech. My wife and I are divorced, and I was awarded physical custody of our 2 sons and the son she has outside of our marriage. She's angry about that. Because I have physical custody, I don't consult her on every little thing. Our son, Josh, who's young, had curly hair that needed to be cut, so I cut it. When my ex picked him up, she had a fit. We had a long argument about why I should or shouldn't consult her about cutting his hair. Mind you, I had 0 issues when all 3 returned from her house with red, green, and blue hair a couple of months ago. I thought it was ridiculous and asked her if our son's curls were a proxy for her not having custody, and if so, to get over it. I hung up on her. Plus she was yelling while saying she wasn't. We had a pool party for our older son's birthday a few weeks later. Both of our families were there. Her dad asked to speak with me privately. He told me he thought I was out of line in how I communicated to my ex and ought to be more kind. Unfortunately, my ex lives with him. I told him it was none of his business and to tell me 3 things she could improve on. He said it's not about her, it's about me. I laughed and said he proved my point that he thinks she can't do any wrong, and if he didn't like how I spoke to her, then get the heck out. I paid for the pool. He did. Now he's spinning the story that I kicked him out and how he feels uncomfortable coming to my son's sporting events because of me. My ex asked me to apologize so as not to make things worse. I refused to apologize for something I didn't do. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Just because you have custody doesn't mean the children do not have another parent, and you should try to make your relationship with their mother as smooth as possible for their sake and co-parent as best you can. You are on a control kick and determined to show her who the boss is. She deserves to be consulted on certain issues as you do, and communication needs to improve here 1000%. You were unnecessarily rude to her father, who, yes, had no right to get involved in your business, but was probably just trying to help. You need to think about what your future co-parenting looks like, because as it stands, it's a shambles, and only your children will suffer. Agree, you are the idiot. I think that Grandpa approached this correctly. He's concerned about how you treat his daughter, so he tried to talk to you privately about it. Unfortunately, instead of speaking with him or even politely telling him it wasn't his affair, you asked a rude question and once again played king of the mountain by ejecting him from the event. Are people seriously saying he's the idiot? Do you know how rare it is for a dad to get full custody of kids? So that means she must have been doing some messed up crap. And it's a haircut, and hair grows back. Get over it, people. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like he pierced them. OP's not the idiot. Yeah, he got custody of a child that isn't biologically his, too. She'd be a real piece of work if that happened. You have custody, not him. He's the reason she is the way she is now. Not taking responsibility seems to run in that family. But for the sake of your children and your own sake, you need to handle this better, even if your anger and frustration are understandable. So, I, 26 male, have been dating my girlfriend, Chloe, 26, for 3 years. We started as friends and have known each other since high school. She's perfect for me in every way, other than her family, which is the cause for this post. So when we first started dating, I wanted to get married, but about a year ago, I switched that up. The reason sounds stupid, but it just caused me to freak out. We were watching this show that talked about divorced men and their struggles. It turned me on to a couple of subs about men who got boned in divorces, whether that be cheating spouses, alimony, or the freedoms men lose when they get married. Sometimes I wish I never went down that rabbit hole, but I did, and I've been very clear with Chloe that I don't want to get married. I'm fine being life partners and having kids, all that. I told her this, and she was very sad. We split up for a bit, but she came back and said she didn't mind. She's fine with whatever life we build. So that's what we've been doing. The issue, her family is nosy as crap. After getting questioned countless times about it, we finally sat them down and explained, we don't plan on getting married. Her family lost it. They say I was the one forcing this, and a bunch of other BS. Her sister especially is angry. We were at a barbecue this weekend, and sure enough, her sister's mouthing off. She's recently engaged and was throwing shade about how amazing it is to be committed. I caught some side glances from her parents. I looked at her and said, if you have something to say, go ahead. She said, you just wouldn't understand the feeling. I said, well, considering you've been engaged 3 times and married once already, I'm not quite sure you know the right feeling either, sweetie. Her dad and mom then butted in, saying I needed to take that back. I said, both of y'all have been divorced before, so maybe stop the petty glances and look in the mirror. I was done after that, and Chloe and I left. I know it's not smart getting into it with your girlfriend's family, but I feel like they were crossing a boundary, and it had to be said. So Chloe's staying out of it mostly, but I want to make sure I'm not the idiot. Am I? Not the idiot for the question at hand regarding her family. Don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, or some crap. But as a male whose divorce bankrupted him, you're dumb for letting a TV show and the internet be the reason you're not going to get married. Take the time you need to be sure, but your reasoning is flimsy. For what it's worth, I said I was never getting married again. I just hit 7 years with my girlfriend and will likely propose in the near future. Never say never. Dude never heard of common law marriages either. If he's worried about losing out in a divorce, he can face the same things after a certain amount of years of living together. This girl should have taken the hint. He's just not that into her if he can be so easily swayed not to want to get married. Of course, if they have kids and separate, it's no different than if they were married. So I'm confused about what he's worried about that a prenup wouldn't cover. I would be cranky with him too if I were her mom. Not to mention, OP says they'll have kids. That takes away most of the freedom and ties him monetarily to his girlfriend for 18 years. OP, your reasoning for not wanting to get married is ridiculous and proves that you're way too immature. You are the idiot for 2 reasons. It seems like you're looking for reasons to get offended and argue about your viewpoints on marriage. Your views on marriage are misinformed at best. You're letting the internet shape your view of marriage, and much of what you've learned is false or misinformed. You told your long-term partner you wouldn't marry her because of what you read on internet forums? Of course the people in her life will be confused and judgmental. Also, your girlfriend was under the impression that you would get married for years. You changed your opinion based on no issues in your relationship and put her in a crappy situation. I wonder if you even looked at it from a woman's perspective. Having kids takes a tremendous toll on a woman's body and career prospects. He's not the only one who would be taking risk here. OP is hypocritical by acting like he's a system victim. What on earth are you talking about when you say, freedoms men lose when they're married? So the second you get married, your beautiful girlfriend turns into a bitter nagging shrew who restricts all of your free time and lays down the rules about what you can and cannot do? You are the idiot. OP is looking for opportunities to vent about negative views on marriage at an engagement party. I recently got engaged to my amazing fiance. We've been together for 5 years, and we've been slowly but surely hammering out details for our wedding. We both agreed on 2 things since the engagement. Our wedding was to be dry and child-free. The dry part is because I don't drink, and even though he does, neither of us wants shenanigans at our wedding from too much drinking. There's been a history on both sides of crap going down. About the child-free thing, we don't have anything against children, but we know they can cause some issues and don't want friends to have to babysit rather than be able to have fun. We've made this clear to our families, who've been supportive for the most part. Some mild pushback like, you know your niece is so well behaved, but we've stood our ground. The reason I'm having doubts is with our friends. My best friend, who is or was going to be the maid of honor, has been pushing me on it. Just texts like, it doesn't make sense for me to have to be both dry and child-free. If it wasn't dry, then sure, no kids. But how are we going to toast you? Don't you want your guests to have fun? I've tried to explain to her our reasoning, like we can still toast, going to have an excellent selection of juices and other drinks, and we'd rather not have to deal with the logistics of children, but she's still being kind of passive-aggressive about it. On my fiance's side, his buddies are threatening to show up with booze anyway. No kids there. What's the big deal? He's really upset about it, as he doesn't want to kick them off the invite list, but doesn't want a straightforward rule to be broken. Both of us are conflicted at the moment. A part of me wants to kick out everyone fighting us, while he's asking if we can invite some of our nieces and nephews and cousins, just so if someone tries to sneak in booze, we can pull the think of the children card. But on the other hand, a part of me feels we aren't being unreasonable. It's our wedding. We can choose what we want to do. But the threats of either people not going, or sneaking stuff in, or them saying we're being unreasonable is getting to me. Am I the idiot? Everyone's the idiot here. You can choose whatever you want. You can have a dry wedding, a child-free wedding, a vegan wedding, a music-free wedding, a danceless wedding, a hand-in-your-phone at the entry wedding, a yellow dresses-only wedding, a no gifts under $500 wedding, and more. But you cannot expect all your guests to A. come, B. like it, and C. enjoy themselves. You expect some of them to take time off, spending money on clothes, travel, gifts, and babysitters. All family babysitters are unavailable. Do you get that there's a limit to what makes it worth it for your guest? Of course they like you, but your party screams, but we don't like you. If you don't go to your friend's wedding because you can't overdrink, you're 100% an idiot. If you don't go to your friend's wedding because you can't leave your kids for whatever reason, you're 100% not an idiot. There's a big difference between the two. Not the idiot. It's your wedding. You get to decide what kind of wedding it is. It sounds like you have the classic problem of discussing things too much. When we discuss, other people feel entitled to chime in. Don't discuss. If anyone attempts to discuss it further, just say, yes, that's the plan. Then change the subject. This is not a discussion. You've made the decision. My husband and I are expecting our first child, and we're very excited, and so is the rest of the family. And yes, this does include my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law and I have an interesting relationship, to say the least. We can tolerate each other sometimes, but she can be quite overbearing, and she's shared her opinions about how I should be taking care of the home, my career choice, etc. Of course, this was also going to happen during pregnancy, so we kept it a secret from everyone until I was about 5 months in. Sometimes I think she's just looking out for me, but other times she gives her unauthorized opinions about our birth plan, whether or not I've gained enough weight, our decision to not have a gender reveal party, and what I eat. We found out the gender the old-fashioned way during the scan. We had a couple of names we were deciding between, and mother-in-law jumped in and suggested a few names. The names mother-in-law wanted were not bad names by any means, but we weren't thrilled about them. However, we eventually decided to name our baby girl Frankie. We think it's a cute name. However, mother-in-law didn't. She hated it and seemed almost angry that we had decided to give our baby girl a boy's name. I told her that we made up our minds and that the name would be Frankie. She huffed and groaned and asked us to at least reconsider, but we said that we weren't budging. That was a month ago. Now I'm 8.5 months along, and mother-in-law's been begging me to change my daughter's name, texting nonstop, calling me, venting to other family members about it, and it's been stressing me out. At one point, she even said that the name was ugly and that I would regret it if I named my daughter that. So this is where I might be the idiot. A voice in the back of my head has been telling me that I should not let mother-in-law anywhere near the baby or me during or after I had given birth. I feel she would use my vulnerable state to try and convince my husband and me to change the name to something more feminine, or even go near the birth certificate papers and change it when no one's looking, or something of that nature. I wasn't planning on having anyone with me during the birth, but afterward is another story. So I informed mother-in-law that she couldn't visit me in the hospital and that we would come to her later instead. Mother-in-law flipped out and called me an inconsiderate witch for not letting her see her first grandchild when I let everyone else see her. She then turned to my husband and said he was an idiot for, quote, marrying this woman. Sister-in-law, with whom I had a decent relationship, messaged my husband later that day and said that my hormones were getting the best of me, that I was turning paranoid, and that I needed to reconsider before I tore up the family. So, am I the idiot? Am I really just being paranoid? Not the idiot. Childbirth is all about you and your baby. You come first, and if you don't feel well with a visit from your mother-in-law, she should respect that. Your baby's name is yours and the father's choice, not anyone else's. Unfortunately, mother-in-laws often react poorly to grandchildren's names. That's why most folks around me keep the baby's names a secret until they're born. Your husband must stand up for you and demand that she mind her business. She's bringing unnecessary stress to both of you. Your baby's name is none of her effing business. Tell your husband it's his responsibility to tell her. Your husband needs to set boundaries with his mother. Her behavior is unacceptable. Also, sister-in-law needs to keep her mouth shut. You are not obligated to have anyone visit you in the hospital that you don't want. If she shows up, call the nurse and have her removed. She doesn't like it? Too bad.